Your mind is lying to you right now, and it sounds exactly like your own voice. That thought you had this morning, the one that told you you weren't ready, that it was too late, that they were probably right about you. You accepted it instantly. You didn't question it. You never do. We treat our thoughts like reporters reading the news. But what if most of them are con artists wearing a badge? Over 2,200 years ago, one man built a test to catch them in the act. It took about 5 seconds, and almost no one alive today knows it exists. His name was Chrysippus, and he arrived in Athens as a nobody. A long-distance runner, some say, with strong legs and an empty reputation. He walked into the Stoic school expecting wisdom. What he found was a school on the edge of collapse. The founder, Zeno, was gone. The second leader, Cleanthes, was a former boxer, honest, loyal, slow. Brilliant rivals were circling. There was a school across the city, the academy, sharpening arguments like knives, and they were winning. They had a weapon the Stoics could not answer. It was doubt, pure, surgical doubt. They could take any belief a Stoic held and dismantle it with a single question, and the Stoics had no defense. The whole philosophy was about to die, not from war, from bad logic. And this is where it gets strange. Chrysippus did not defend the old arguments. He studied the enemy instead. He sat in their lectures. He learned their attacks so well that people whispered he had switched sides. There was a saying in Athens at the time, if the gods used logic, they would use the logic of Chrysippus. But before he could earn that line, he had to ask a question no one in his school had dared to ask. Not what should we believe, but how does a belief actually work? What is it made of? Because he suspected something disturbing. He suspected that most of the beliefs that ran human lives were not beliefs at all. They were assumptions wearing the costume of conclusions. And he was about to prove it. Pull the costume off, and there was nothing underneath. Nothing at all. So Chrysippus did something that sounds almost too simple to matter. He broke every belief down into a shape. A belief, he realized, is almost never a single thing. It is a chain. It is an if, followed by a then. If this is true, then that follows. If I fail at this, then I am worthless. If she did not reply, then she is angry with me. If I feel afraid, then there must be real danger. We don't notice the chain. We only feel the last link snap shut around our throat. We feel the worthlessness. We feel the rejection. We feel the fear as if it were a fact delivered from the outside world. But Chrysippus saw the truth. The feeling was the end of an argument we never checked, and an argument can be tested. Link by link, premise by premise. That was the test. That was the whole revolution. You do not fight the feeling. You audit the logic that built it. Now stop. Think of the last time your stomach dropped. The message you read 3 times searching for the hidden insult. The morning you did not want to get up, and a voice told you it was because you were weak. The thing you were afraid to send. The one still sitting in your drafts. In every one of those moments, your mind ran an if-then chain at a speed faster than thought. If he used that tone, then he despises me. If I am this tired, then something is wrong with me. And you never once stopped to ask the only question that mattered. Does the then actually follow from the if? Because here is the secret Chrysippus built his entire system around. Most of the time, it does not. The conclusion is smuggled in. It was decided before the evidence ever arrived. You think you are reasoning. You are remembering an old fear and calling it a fact. But Chrysippus knew that catching the chain was not enough. People could see their bad logic and still drown in it. So he sharpened the test into something faster, something almost cruel in its simplicity. He taught his students to take the belief and force it to make a prediction, to say it out loud, fully in the form of an if, an a then, and then ask one ruthless question. What would have to be true in the world for this to be real? Not what I feel. What must exist outside my own skull? If she is angry with me, then there should be more than silence. There should be a cause I can name. If I am worthless because I failed, then every person who has ever failed is worthless. And I do not believe that. So the chain is already broken. Watch what happens in that instant. The feeling that arrived as a mountain reveals itself as a sentence, and a sentence can be wrong. This is the turning point, and it is bigger than logic, because the academy, the rival school, used doubt to destroy. They wanted to prove that nothing could be known, that certainty was a joke, that the wise man should suspend all judgment and float free. Chrysippus used the very same blade and turned it around. He did not aim the doubt at the world. He aimed it at his own conclusions. He realized you do not need to be certain about everything. You only need to stop being certain about the lies. Strip away every conclusion that cannot survive the test, and what remains is small, but it is solid ground. And a man standing on solid ground cannot be pushed. That is what saved the Stoic school. Chrysippus wrote over 700 books. He out-argued every rival. He rebuilt the entire philosophy on a foundation of tested logic, and it stood for centuries, all the way to a Roman emperor and a freed slave who would carry his fingerprints without ever knowing his name. And here is the part that should make the hair on your arms stand up. 2,000 years later, modern psychology rediscovered exactly the same thing and had no idea Chrysippus got there first. In the 1950s and 60s, a psychiatrist named Aaron Beck was treating people drowning in depression. He noticed that before the wave of despair hit them, there was always a thought, a fast one, a flash they barely registered. He called them automatic thoughts. If my friend walked past me, then she hates me. If I made one mistake, then the whole thing is ruined. Sound familiar? It is the if-then chain, the exact shape Chrysippus drew, and the treatment Beck built, the one now backed by more evidence than almost any therapy in existence, cognitive behavioral therapy, does precisely what the old Stoic taught. It catches the automatic thought, it writes it down, and it asks with cold patience, where is the evidence? Does the conclusion follow? What would have to be true? Beck found that when people examined the chain instead of obeying it, the feeling lost its grip, not because they forced themselves to think positive, because they stopped believing things that were never proven. The science did not invent the cure. It confirmed the ancient one. And that opens the door to the question we started with. Why does this work in roughly 5 seconds when willpower fails over a lifetime? Because you are not trying to delete the thought. Fighting a thought feeds it. You are doing something the brain cannot resist. You are turning a feeling into a claim. The moment a vague dread becomes a specific sentence with an if and a then, it enters a courtroom. And in a courtroom, it can be cross-examined. Vague fear is invincible. A stated argument is fragile. That is the whole trick. You drag the lie out of the shadows of feeling and into the light of language, and most of the time, it cannot survive the walk. So here is what you do tonight. The next time that wave hits, the tightening in your chest, the sinking, the certainty that something is wrong, do not push it away. Catch it. Then finish the sentence out loud. Start with the word if. If he did not reply, then. Whatever your mind fills in, say it completely. Now run the test, the same one from the 3rd century before Christ. Ask 3 things. First, is this a fact or a prediction wearing the mask of a fact? Second, what would actually have to be true in the world for this to be real? And do I have any evidence that it is? Third, if a friend said this exact chain to me, would I believe their conclusion or would I see the gap? 5 seconds. That is all it takes to find the broken link. And once you see the gap, you cannot unsee it. The feeling does not vanish like magic, but it stops being a verdict. It becomes a sentence you are allowed to doubt. Do this once and it feels like a trick. Do it for a week and something changes underneath. Do it for a month and you will notice the most important shift of all, the gap, a small space opening between the thought and the belief in the thought. That space is everything. That space is where your freedom lives. Chrysippus did not hand us comfort. He handed us a blade and taught us where to point it, not at the world, not at other people, but at the unexamined arguments running quietly behind our own eyes. Your mind will lie to you again tomorrow. It will sound just like you. But now you know the test. You know how to make it speak in full sentences. And a lie that has to speak in full sentences has already begun to lose. If this opened a door in your mind, follow along, because the ancients left us more of these tools than you could imagine, and we are bringing them back, one at a time.